All right, we're live, and this is take number 2, giving it a second chance. So hopefully you guys can hear me. I made some adjustments to my microphone. The room looks a little bit dark, but hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully you can see me, and we can go live now and see how it works. I have the chat up here, so if you can't hear me or if you can hear me, please by all means let me know in the pop-ups, let me know in the chat. Would love to see it. So since all of that audio was gone, since nobody could hear a single thing, I'm going to start over fresh and I'll start over new. And this is real and this is raw. This is my first time trying out live on YouTube, and I'm pretty excited to be here. I've been on live videos in other platforms, but this is really my first time doing this here on YouTube. So I'm excited to get it going. This is a great platform, and it's a really exciting place for me to be able to share some knowledge and some information. So couple things. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bob Mastroianni. I know that the audio is working now. I see little green dots on the bottom of my screen going up every time my mouth moves. That's showing me that the audio is working, and this is great. And so my name is Bob Mastroianni. I am the Healthy Investor. I have a podcast called the Healthy Investor Podcast. I also have a community called the Healthy Investor Community. And I've been investing in real estate for about 17 years now. And somewhere in my early 40s, I realized and I learned that many of the most successful people that I know and knew at the time had some sort of healthy habits and routines that played an integral role in their success. And I stumbled across this really cool healthy habit and healthy routine called the Miracle Morning. And I'll dive deeper into that at another point. But I added some healthy habits and some healthy routines to my life. And I feel like so many things started to come in place a little bit better. And I started to feel better. I started to think better. I started to work better. And I learned so many lessons. And I think that one of the big hacks that people aren't speaking about enough is that healthy habits, healthy routines, and adding some healthy things to your lifestyle can really make a difference to where you are. You know, I started out in a position where at a certain point in my life, you know, 20s, terrible credit score, no assets, job to job, all those kind of things. And, you know, if I had known at a younger age that focusing on myself, focusing on some of my personal health and healthy habits would have made this kind of difference. I hope that I would have listened. I can't guarantee that I would have, but I hope that I would have listened. And I want to share that knowledge to others and share what I've learned and help other people sort of find some success. And so when I host a Healthy Investor podcast, I interview entrepreneurs, I interview investors, and we talk about their business. We talk about their successes, we talk about their journey and their road. And then in the second segment, we like to talk about what are your healthy habits and routines and how do they impact that business journey, that personal life journey, and all of those things. And you know, the results are sort of exponential. Everyone that I speak to talks about they have some sort of healthy habits or routines and some sort of thing that they do most often to start their day, most often in the morning, but sometimes it's not in the morning. But something that they do to focus on themselves that helps them refocus into center and then start focusing on other healthy habits or routines. So, I've taken on this journey. I love to share this information with others. I've been investing in real estate for a little over 17 years. And so when I first started investing in real estate, so we're talking now 2006, 2007, 2008, those first couple of years, I was educating myself and looking for ways to educate myself as a real estate investor. And so what did I learn? Well, I learned a lot from books. I learned a lot from um, mentors that I had met along the way. I also learned some things in this, school of hard work or school of hard knocks. But I was really looking for some sort of mentorship in the beginning. I was really looking for someone who I can go to and say, I've gotten this far. Now what do I do? Or I learned this. Can you explain it to me a little bit better? And at that time, all I was able to find were big, expensive mentorship programs that I could not afford to be a part of, and to the tune of 20, 25, $30,000. And I just didn't have the money, and I wasn't going to, I wasn't able to run up credit card debt for that, newly married, first home. And I really wanted to get involved in this real estate investing thing. So I found some people, I've met some people along the way. I went to communities and I networked, but I've learned a lot over my 17 years, and I just want to share that with people, and I want to be that resource that I could have used back then. Um, I want to be that resource that isn't 20, 25, $30,000, to be able to learn from. And I want to be able to provide value for other people, and for other people just like me, who sort of wanted to get out of the rat race of working jobs that I didn't like, and feeling like I was sort of underutilizing some talent and some skills that I had, and but just didn't know the direction to take. So that's why I created the Healthy Investor podcast. That's why I've created this Healthy Investor community that I'll talk more about as we move along. But I wanted to do this live today as a way to sort of introduce myself. And, if people come on and start asking questions, that would be great. If not, this will be something that we'll be able to archive and pass along. And I also wanted to utilize this as a way to really start the ball rolling. And, you can see I have some books in the background here. The book that's right in the middle is one that's pretty important to me. Gentleman by the name of Jeff Olson wrote the book, The Slight Edge. And The Slight Edge is a really cool book. I found this book probably about 10 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer. And the slight edge principles talk about sort of doing that little thing that most people aren't willing to do consistently over time. So, is that little thing getting up and going for a walk every morning? Is that little thing making sure that you get to the gym? Is that little thing meditation? Is that little thing putting a certain amount of money away, and that you're going to put towards your investments, or paying down your debt, or whatever it is, that little thing that you continue to do over and over and over again, and it grows by leaps and bounds. And I found that consistency continues over time. And quite frankly, this video here for me is the first step, right? Because how do you grow to the point where you have 100 videos on YouTube? Well, you have to have one, right? And so I have some videos on YouTube, and I'm grateful for my subscribers. If you're seeing this video, would love to have you subscribe and follow along. I'm going to do this every week. And but this is the beginning. This is the first of those steps. And then I'm going to continue to chip away each week. And I'm going to give tips and tricks. I'm going to talk about market cycles. I'm going to talk about things that are going on in my personal life. I'm going to talk about my health journey and fitness journey. I will tell you that in the my early 40s, I found the sport of triathlon. And so the sport of triathlon helped me, and you can see I have some medals in the background here. The sport of triathlon helped me to figure out some things that I really enjoy in my fitness journey. I know some things that I know about me is that one is that I need some sort of goal to help me continue to move and help me continue to keep motivation and to sort of keep going. And so triathlon has become that thing for me over the years. I've had different triathlons that I wanted to make sure that I was able to compete in, and I had different triathlon goals as far as times. And so that has been a really cool part of my life. I've met some amazing people competing in triathlons and being a part of triathlon groups. And so that's been a fun thing for me. I've learned a lot about myself. You learn a lot about yourself when you are swimming in the ocean. You learn a lot about yourself when you are on a long bike ride with no one else, or when you are on a long run with nothing but your thoughts and your own motivation or lack thereof. So you learn a lot about yourself by doing these things. And I've found ways to also translate those habits, translate those skill sets into my business and professional life, into my personal life and family life. And it's really been a great journey. So I wanted to jump on here today and talk about some of those things, and hope that some others will join and some people will come in and ask some questions or find out a little bit more about me and about what I'm doing. So before we go any further, I want to jump into something that's very topical for me, which is this past weekend, I competed in my very first Ironman race. And so I competed in an Ironman race, which is a 70.3-mile Ironman race. Some people refer to that as a half Ironman versus a full Ironman, which is 140 miles. But it was a big step for me. It was a big journey for me. I signed up for it a little over a year ago. I signed up for the Ironman in Maine, which is in Augusta, Maine. I guess it was a little over a year ago, and I went with some friends, and I had some friends who also participated in different portions of the race. Some of them did a relay, and then one of them also did the full journey along with me, which is the swim, the bike, and the run. And so, what does that entail? The event itself entails a 1.2-mile swim. And for this specific event, it's in the Kennebec River, which is in Augusta, Maine. So a 1.2-mile swim, current assisted. So, you're going the same way that the river's going. So you're not, fighting the stream and sort of trying to fight your way back up there. And then you get off and you get changed and you get on your bike and you go for a 56-mile bike ride. And then after the bike ride, you get off. You may get changed again. Some people do, some people don't. Some people just change their shoes, change their hat, whatever. And then you go for a half marathon run. And so all told, it adds up to 70.2 miles. 70.3, I'm sorry, 70.3 miles. And so that was a journey that I set on. And for those who have followed me in any of the other social medias, you've been a part of this journey. It's a journey that I set out on just about a year ago. I actually signed up for the event the moment that it was released. It was like the first week in August. They started selling race entry fees, and I jumped in right away and purchased it right away because I knew that that would sort of commit me. And it's been a journey. One of the things that I wanted to make sure to spend time to focus on during my Ironman journey was muscle building. And that is something that I've not focused on in the past. I often focused on the specific disciplines, which is swim, bike, and run. But I wanted to build my strength, and I knew that I would need to build strength for this. And so I've been on that journey for a little over a year. I feel like I did a really good job with muscle building. I feel like I did a really good job with strength training and conditioning. I had a coach who helped me a lot along the way. And so that journey, sometimes the journey leading up to the event teaches even more lessons than the event itself. So that journey taught me a lot of really cool things that I want to share. And then the event itself also, of course, taught me some really significant lessons. So first things first, I'll tell you how the event went, and then we can probably jump into what some of the lessons were and what I enjoyed and what I may not have enjoyed quite as much, right? So first things first, the swim. We had to walk 1 mile to the start of the swim. So essentially where our transition was, which is sort of where you leave all of your things, was at the end of the swim. So we had to walk down a 1 mile path to the beginning of the swim. That 1 mile walk started around 5:30 in the morning, and there were 2,000 people who signed up for the event. And so we walked down, and then they set us off in different pacing groups, and there were people standing with signs, and you had to sort of estimate exactly how long you thought it would take for you to finish the swim. The group that I was in were the people who thought that they would finish the swim in 40 to 43 minutes. And I finished my swim in 41 minutes and I think 12 seconds or something like that. So I was absolutely appropriately positioned there. The swim was interesting because, I'm from South Jersey. I often swim Cape May County, New Jersey, at the Jersey Shore in the ocean. And this time of year in July, the ocean's still a little bit chilly. Sometimes we get our days where it's around 60 degrees, and sometimes we get our days where we're like really excited because it might be 65 or 66 degrees. The water temperature of the Kennebec River on Saturday morning was 73.5 degrees. So it's like bath water. It's like something I've never seen. And the air temperature was actually around 63 degrees. So there was a 10-degree difference between the outside air temperature and the warmer water temperature. The swim is absolutely beautiful. It is a beautiful swim. The Kennebec River is clean. It is nice. They had plenty of aids out on the river in kayaks in case you needed any assistance. Took me a few minutes to get settled into my swim, get my pacing down. Because the water was warmer than the air, my goggles actually fogged up on me. So I sort of had to stop and clean the goggles off and get them ready. But then I sort of got back into my motion, and I swam at a pace that was comfortable for me. I know that I could have finished that swim a little bit faster than I did, but I also knew I had about an 8-hour day ahead of me, and I just didn't want to go out too strong and go out too fast and then sort of, tucker out too soon. My goal for the swim was that I would be finished swim and transition one. And so transition one is where we get out of our swim clothes and we're now in everything for the bike, and we leave with the bike. My goal was to do all of that in under 1 hour. And I'm really grateful to say that I did that. I did exactly that. My swim was 41 minutes and my transition was around 11, and there's some seconds on the end there. So a little over 52 minutes for me to swim, transition, get on the bike and get moving. So pretty cool experience right there. Transition from the swim to the bike was actually straight uphill, which sort of set the tone for the day because Kennebec, Augusta, Maine, that area is extremely hilly. And so we get out of the river, and all of your clothes and all of your bike and all of your fun stuff is at the top of the hill. So you had to kind of sort of climb that hill to get back to transition, get changed, get ready to go. And I actually started the bike with two of my friends, and we were only together for a few moments before we wound up being separated. Some interesting things happened to me on the bike. And so some of these things are what I call a sort of rite of passage of triathlon, right? Someone once told me that it's a rite of passage of Ironman, that at some point in your Ironman journey, you will lose one of your water bottles. So be prepared for that. And so about 6 or 7 miles into the bike ride, I was taking on some water, taking on some hydration. I was steering with one hand and drinking my water bottle with the other hand. And I completed about half of that water bottle. Maybe I was about 8 miles in or 9. But my bike swerved just a little bit, and I really did not want the bike to swerve, and I dropped the water bottle. And so fortunately, I had 2 more on the back, and I was able to continue that hydration, and I didn't wind up dehydrating at any point. But I lost the water bottle, and that's sort of the first little trial tribulation that happened. Very, very hilly course. Many hills in my estimation. And I sort of planned for this, right? There was a hill at mile 2, there was a hill at mile 5, there was a hill at mile 8, there was a hill at mile 11, there was a hill at mile 14, and that got me to the first aid station. And that's really how the entire day went. My goal was to get to the first aid station and out of the first aid station in about an hour. And I knew I was not successful at that. And when I got to the first aid station, it was probably about an hour and 5 minutes into my ride. So I knew I was a little bit behind schedule. And so what I did was I didn't break very long. I picked up a new water bottle. I added some hydration. I took on some calories. I ate and I got right back on the road. I never really left my bike, but I did stop. So that first aid station, I sort of stopped for probably 2 to 3 minutes and was back on my way. More hills, more struggles. There was a lot of time in the bike ride that I was in my lowest gear and just trying to chug along and trying to get it going. Next aid station was at mile 32. And so there were a lot of really steep hills. We just sort of kept going up and kept going up and kept going up until we got to aid station number 2. By aid station number 2, I was starting to feel some fatigue. I had also experienced a really bad cramp in the back of my leg. So around mile 25, I was on a hill trying to pedal and my leg cramped up. And I had to stop. I had to pull over in the middle of the hill, get off, and I had to work it out, right? I had to do the stretching, do all the things, and sort of get it back going. And then getting back on the bike and gaining momentum when you're already halfway up a hill is not a very easy thing to do. And I got myself going, but that was another slight bit of a time suck. And then the bike continued like that. And I will say this, that's basically how the bike continued. Both of the next 2 aid stations, I had to stop for sort of extended periods of time. There were porta potties there. I had to use the restroom. I had to eat, add hydration. And so the next 2 aid station was at 32 miles and then at 46 miles. Those were those aid stations. I really spent some time there because I had to. I needed to refresh. Leaving aid station number 2, I felt pretty refreshed. Leaving aid station number 3, I felt exhausted. I felt like I had burnt a lot of calories. I felt like I'd put a lot of time in, and I did put a lot of time in. When I made it to the end of the race, finally, I will say this, in the last 5 to 6 miles of the race, there were times when, we talk about that this game is not only physical, but it's also mental. The little mental gremlin started to creep in a little bit. And what does that mean? Well, the mental gremlin started to creep in and said to me, if we get off this bike, there's no doing the run. You can't do this run. And I had to shut them up. I had to shut them up and say, that's not true. That's not true. And one of the ways that I was able to shut them up, as crazy as this sounds, is that I knew that there was a mile marker every 5 miles on the bike, right? 5 miles. There were 11 of them, 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to mile marker 55. And so I knew that coming into it. And so every time I passed the mile marker, people thought I was crazy. Some people thought I was talking to them. I would just say, that's 1, that's 3, that's 7. So when I left that aid station at mile marker 46, I had already said, that's 9. So in my mind, I wasn't saying I have 11 more miles to go or I have 10 more miles to go. I was saying 2 more of those signs and I'm done. 2 of the 11 signs are left. And there's a little bit of a mental tactic there, right? I've done 9 of the 11 or I have 11 more miles to go, which sounds a little bit better. I've already done 9 of the 11. I'm almost there. And so that's the mental capacity that I had to have. And I kept going. And of course, shouted out, that's 10. That's 10 was a very jubilant yell for me. And it kept me going. And every time I did it, it sort of kept me going for another mile to 2 miles because I was adding positive energy into my mindset. Oddly enough, because the whole race is 56 miles, they actually didn't have a 55-mile marker. So I never got to yell out, that's number 11. But when I got to 55 miles, I knew I was very close to the finish line. I could see how far I was. And when I made it to the finish line of the bike, I was really excited. I saw my wife and my daughter there. That was the first time I had seen them that day. Um, and so that was really cool. I was really excited to see them. They were cheering me on. Um, and just telling me, you got this, keep going, keep going. And that really brightened my day. And again, when we talk about the mental capacity, are you adding positive things in here or are you adding negative things in here? The shift happens so tremendously when you're adding those positive things in. I saw my wife and daughter for the first time for the day. I'd been out there for 5.5 hours, and this is the first time I saw them. And I'm like, oh, wow. I knew they were there. I knew that they were there. They'd been there for hours, but I hadn't seen them yet. And when I saw them, and they were following along on the app, so they knew where I was and they knew to be by the finish line when I was getting close to the bike finish. And so I headed into transition, and one of my practices in triathlon, and I learned this from a doctor friend, is that when I'm finished the bike, my lower back is usually pretty cramped up and my hips are pretty tight. And so I do a few stretches before I start the run, and I do some stretches to open up my hips and to stretch my back out. So I did that. I did that in transition, made some changes. I got rid of my helmet. I put my hat on. I put my little run belt on. And I actually took a water with me, which I don't know if that was a mistake or it wasn't a mistake, but I brought a water with me and I went out on the run. And now I had a half marathon. The thing that was weighing heavy on me at that point is that the bike took me 1 hour longer than I had anticipated it was going to take. 1 extra hour on the bike. I was hoping to be off of the bike in 3 hours and 30 minutes. And I was off of the bike in 3 hours and 45 minutes. And so looking back at some of my statistics, looking back at my bike computer, I have a little bike computer that tells me how fast I've been going and how far I've been going and all that fun stuff. And that bike computer showed me that I was moving for just about 4 hours, but then I had about 36 minutes of idle time. And that's something that I know I can work on. And that's a great lesson learned, because I spent a lot of downtime either in transition or stretching out cramps or doing what I had to do to make sure that I was refreshed and ready to keep moving. So 4 hours and 35 minutes on the bike had now put me behind schedule. And, I thought I would be 3.5 hours. I thought sort of worst case scenario would have been 4 hours. And now we're at 4:35. When I started the run, I knew that I had 2 hours and 52 minutes to complete a half marathon run without receiving what's called a DNF, which is did not finish. So I had 2 hours and 52 minutes. Now, for me to run a half marathon in 2 hours and 52 minutes on a Sunday morning when I just woke up from a great night's sleep and I'm feeling fresh, not a problem at all. For me to do that after everything that I had already done was going to be a challenge. So for the run, I adopted a run/walk interval where I would run for about 6 minutes and then I would walk for 2, run for 6 minutes, walk for 3, and sort of did that off and on for the first 4+ miles of the race. And so we ran down a really nice shady path for about 4.25 miles, 4.5 miles, and then there was a turnaround, and then I was to come back. And so I sort of did all that. And again, there were even a couple times where I was able to actually skip my walk break, and I did a 6-minute, and then I did another 6-minute, which was really good. I did have some stomach pains, and I had to work that out. Fortunately, there were plenty of aid stations and also porta potties available to sort of work those situations out. When I got to the 7.5 mile mark, there was a sign there that said cutoff. Now, I knew that there was a cutoff coming, and I didn't know exactly where it was. The cutoff said you had to be past that sign by 2:40 p.m., which meant that if I was past that sign by 2:40 p.m., no matter where I was in my race, they weren't going to stop me. And so when I passed that cutoff, I looked down at my watch and it was 2:21, and I had 19 minutes. So I was ahead. I was ahead of the schedule. When I passed that sign, I knew that the officials were not going to stop me. So even if it took me more than 8 hours, they would have let me finish. That was sort of important to me because I wanted to make sure that no one else controlled my my final destiny here. And so I kept going, kept moving. Now at this point, I was no longer in a shaded area. It was very sunny. It got really warm, and some things changed for me. I started to get lightheaded. I started to get dizzy. I started to feel a bit woozy. I tried to work through it. I started walking a bit and just sort of walking at a very, very tough pace, but I kept doing it. I kept going. And at that point in the race, I realized that I was heading to an area because they were breaking down aid stations. I knew that there were no aid stations left. I was heading to an area where I had a really steep uphill and there were no people. And so I was a little concerned about this dizziness, and I was concerned about this wooziness and the fact that I was heading to an area where there really weren't any people. And the last thing I wanted to do was go down and not be around anyone. So around the 8:30, 8:33 portion of the run, 8 miles, 0.33, I decided to call it. I decided that that was as far as I could go, and I needed to head back and seek the medic tent. And so I turned around from where I was and I went back to that cutoff area, and I made a right, and I followed that up to where the finish line area was and headed straight for the medic tent. I did wind up walking through the finish line. However, I did not get an official finish. And that's where the confusion came in. So for those who followed along, initially that app said that I completed the race, and it actually said that I completed the race in under 8 hours, which was a goal of mine. It was like 7:59 or something like that. But I did not complete the race. I was offered a medal as I went through the finish line, and I did not accept it because it doesn't go up here unless I earned it. That's a me thing. And I headed straight for the medic tent. I had to, that's the only way I could have gotten through to the medic tent because there were all these fences up at that point. And so I went through the finish line and I went straight to the medic tent, and everything was good. My blood pressure was a little bit low, but not too bad. All of my other vitals were good. And the medics were really able to help me out. So long journey, very long journey. DNF, did not finish. Not the result I was expecting, not the result I was hoping for. And so now what? Now what do I do? Right? I have to regroup myself. I have to know that that's not the be all end all for me. And I also have to know that that's not the end of my journey. So I'll find whatever the next event for me is going to be. This week is really a bit of a relaxed week where I'm trying to recover from what I've done, from the stress that I've put my body on. So I have to recover from that a little bit and then regroup. And so there are many, many great life lessons. This is a business lesson too. Sometimes we get really far down that road to business and we hit a bonk or we hit a tough patch, and we have to decide, how are we going to regroup and how are we going to finish it? So I hope that people get some value out of this. I hope someone's gotten value out of this live stream. I would love to hear from you, love to have you follow along. Please subscribe to my channel because I'm going to give more information out like this, and I'm going to jump into a lot more information about my real estate journey, my business journey, and I'm going to bring some people on. So thank you so much. If you've gotten any value out of this, thank you so much for being a part of my very first YouTube live session. And I'm excited to have so many more of them. Again, my name is Bob Mastroianni, the Healthy Investor, and go out there and make it a great day.